tamper with the pyramid because originally it was only 4 steps. One of the crackers carved the top step in to again mislead the people one way or another as to the origin of where it came from. Now here's the pyramid of Khufu. Now as we talk about pyramids, and a lot of people want to kick mathematics, let's drop this mathematics. There is only one place on the planet that created a true pyramid. If you know geometry, a pyramid comes to a point. And it is only in the Nile Valley, Egypt, and Nubia where the true pyramid is to be found. You understand what I'm saying? This shows you that the architectural development and engineering, civil engineering in the Nile Valley reached an apex which could not be duplicated nowhere else. When you look at the pyramid of Teotihuacan, look at this. This is not smooth stone. Those are rocks put in place by mortar. It is put in place by mortar. There is no mortar on the pyramids of Giza. There are no stones placed in mortar. These are solid blocks cut by masons, master masons. Some of the blocks weighing 5 to 10 tons. You see here what was taken up out of the tomb showing the brothers cutting stone. Now you look at that block and you look at them small rocks that was in Teotihuacan. There is no comparison whatsoever. Many of those pyramids in the Americas had fallen down and they rebuilt them back up to give you the illusion that's how they originally looked. Here's many of the tools that our ancestors used to build those pyramids. The square, the plumb line. You understand what I'm saying? To measure out these blocks to perfection. Where else in the world can you find overwhelming evidence of this? Chichen Itza, a step pyramid, and it did not come to a point. They still dealing with the knowledge, and still they couldn't copy Imhotep's pyramid, because Imhotep's pyramid is bigger than Chichen Itza. By far it is bigger than Chichen Itza. So this pyramid was built by the Grand Master Imhotep around 2700 BCE. You understand what I'm saying? You find Chichen Itza right around close to the AD period. So we were building step pyramids 3,000-4,000 years before it even got to the Americas. So we have to be clear about that. And that the pyramids at Giza had a white, smooth limestone casing. And when the sun would hit it, it would shine throughout the land for hundreds of miles with a gold tip at the top. We're looking at Seneferu's pyramid, which is the first true pyramid on the planet. He was the father of Khufu. And you need to do your research because you see the architectural development from Imhotep to Seneferu. Only in Egypt and Nubia do you see a true pyramid coming to a point. We're looking at a pyramid in the Americas. Look at the architecture. Look at the small blocks. They're not even blocks, they're stones with mortar. With mortar. We're talking about our African ancestors was building without mortar. And here it shows how they developed from the step pyramid to the true pyramid by filling in the steps. They started with the step pyramid, then they filled in the steps to come today what we know of as the apex of pyramid building. The pyramid of Seneferu, pyramid of Khufu, the pyramid of Khafra, and the pyramid of Menkaure. Go to the Olmecs, the Nile Valley Voyagers, Part 3. Here you're looking at the mighty Semakhet, 5th king of the first dynasty, 3050 to 2890 BCE, who moved into the Sinai Peninsula, also into Mesopotamia, and you even hear the nation of Sumeria in his name, Semakhet. And here is the black-headed people the Nile Valley Africans that moved into that area, that went into that area under Semerkhet and established Sumeria. What you're looking at is Mesopotamian artifacts. Look at the Egyptian influence on Mesopotamia. It was never vice versa. So you see who was the master and who was the student. Here again, you're looking at artifacts from Nimrud, Assyria, Babylonia, Sumeria, where they had gotten their knowledge from the Nile Valley Africans. You see the influence in all of their artifacts. So all of these brothers that's speaking of the Asiatic black man, cream of the planet Earth. How can you be the cream when you are, in essence, the student? Look at this lowly little peckerwood Arab standing next to the black immortals. You can easily see that these are two separate races. One with woolly hair, the other one with straight hair. Now look at the images of Amun-Ra, the winged sun disk, that the Mesopotamians have taken up out of the Nile Valley and are worshiping. Again, you're looking at artifacts, the so-called Sphinx, which they had taken up out of Egypt. You also see the lotus flower, which is the sacred plant of Upper Egypt, showing that they knew that they came from Upper Nile, up out of the Upper Nile regions of Africa. You see this in their artifacts. So how can somebody that comes thousands of years later rewrite our history and tell us that Mesopotamians came in Africa and civilized the African? They have rewritten the history when the facts are speaking in the artifacts of the Mesopotamians that the Nile Valley Africans went into Mesopotamia and lifted them up and civilized them and educated them. All the artifacts that you are seeing are from Mesopotamia. It was seen as if this was an Egyptian video, but it is not. It is only showing you how Egypt, the Nile Valley, influenced Mesopotamia. This is from Phoenicia, from Sidon, to show you that even the Phoenicians had gotten their education from the Nile Valley Africans. This white marble anthropoid coffin shows a male head wearing an Egyptian-style headdress to show you that the Phoenicians buried themselves like the Egyptians. Again, you're looking at artifacts, and I'm going to continue to show you this because this is the living proof from Mesopotamia, the area where Abraham came from. So Abraham, the area of Ur-Chaldea, was thoroughly Egyptianized, thoroughly of the Cushite high culture. So even before he left Ur-Chaldea, he was thoroughly Egyptianized. This is a ziggurat, and you can see how they built with mud brick and show you how the rain then dilapidated their architecture. They were never on the level of the Nile Valley Africans. They never built with stone. So if they're the cream of the planet Earth, you got to show me the artifacts. You got to show us the facts and put them before us. Here is the winged sun disk, where Zoroaster, the prophet Zoroaster, took from the Nile Valley Amun-Ra to make their deity. Again, you're looking at the winged sun disk from Egypt to show you how the Persian took from the Nile Valley high culture of Amun-Ra and made their deity. Again, you're looking at the winged sun disk. This is Amun-Ra. This is in Persepolis. This is in Iran. This is past Mesopotamia. This is in Elam. You understand what I'm saying? To show you how far that the Nile Valley high culture stretched into Asia. And it was never vice versa. So all of these Jesse Jerusalem Muslims and Father Kabbalah, another weak-ass scholar, gonna tell you and me that the knowledge did not come up out of the Nile. You look at the artifacts for yourself and you tell the damn truth. This is the ziggurat of Ur. Now when you look at this, you say, okay, maybe they did have a little knowledge, but they dressed this damn building up. This is what the damn building looked like before. Right now, in this millennium, they went over that little mud and put those bricks around there to give you the illusion that that's how it looked. But it could never compare to what you're looking at right here. The Great Pyramids of Giza that the Nile Valley Africans put down. Ain't no damn debate. Here it is, right there in your face. And they won't tell you that another civilization on the same level of Kemet existed in America. Nigga, show us the damn pyramid. Show us the architecture, the artifacts, and the writings. They can't show you nothing. Here is the Pyramid of Saqqara. Another grand architect, Imhotep, put down in the Nile Valley for all the world to wonder how the hell he did it. Here again shows you the architecture of Mesopotamia. They only built with mud brick. If you're the cream of the planet Earth, you got to show me something better than this. Jesse, Jerusalem, Muslim, Father Kabbalah, another weak-ass scholar. This is Mesopotamia, and it shows us definitely, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that the knowledge moved from up out of the Nile into Mesopotamia, into India, into China, into Phoenicia, into Europe. It is from up out of the Nile Valley that all culture, all civilization moved around the planet Earth. Now you're looking at Ishtar, which was nothing but a Mesopotamian form of Aset. And you see that they both have the ring of life in their possession. Again, you're looking at the Babylonians, the Immortals, who worship Amun-Ra, who worship the Sphinx, who worship Horn-Ati. And you see that they're black and that they come up out of the Nile. Here you're looking at the architecture from Persepolis, Iran. It is identical to the Egyptian architecture, to show you that they architects went into the Nile Valley to be learned in architecture, and then they went back to build architecture so similar to Egyptian architecture that you would think you were looking at temples that were actually standing in Egypt. So when you look at this map, you see how far to the west Persepolis is from Egypt. That this knowledge not only went to Persepolis, it went past Mesopotamia, it went past Persepolis, it went into India, and even in China. Here it shows the extent of the Nile Valley's empire up into Phoenicia, Israel, even up into Russia. Again, you're looking at Persepolis, Iran, Mesopotamia. You're looking at their architecture, seeing that their architecture is nothing but a plagiarization of the Nile Valley architecture. Taken straight up out of the Nile Valley. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I am showing you the actual fact. I'm not telling you to just believe me. Here it is. Here you see the Mesopotamian kings trying to mimic the Nile Valley kings with the smiting of the enemy. What you're looking at again is another small representation of a Assyrian king trying to mimic the great sultans of the Nile Valley. Here is Nile, the true sultan, the first sultan of Egypt, who came down and reunified Lower and Upper Kemet into one nation. You understand what I'm saying? So again, you're looking at the headdress of the Mesopotamian. You're looking at their stature and their stance. It is all trying to mimic the Nile Valley king. This is to the black woman and to the black man. The original man and woman of the planet Earth. Straight up out of the Nile Valley. Remember where you came from, Africans. This is your brother Sarah Sultan Seti saying, arm yourself with knowledge, bang on that beast daily, liberation through education. Peace. Reading from Diodorus Siculus, Greek historian of 1st century BCE, he states, Osiris being coming to the borders of Ethiopia, raised high banks on either side of the river, lest in the time of his inundation it should overflow the country more than was convenient, and make it marshy and boggy, and made floodgates to let in the water by degrees as far as was necessary. Thence he passed through Arabia, bordering upon the Red Sea as far as to India, and the utmost coasts that were inhabited. He built likewise many cities in India, one of which he called Naza, willing to have a remembrance of that in Egypt where he was brought up. At this Naza in India he planted ivy, which grows the remains here only of all other places in India or the parts adjacent. He left likewise many other marks of his being in those parts, by which the latter inhabitants are induced to believe and do affirm that this God was born in India. Here is the documentation from the 1st century BCE, where the Greek historian is relating to us the information of this black god, Asa, who had educated even the Indian, and that god Asa became Krishna in the Indian realm. And you see that the Indians paint themselves black to remember the great god Asa. Krishna means black in Sanskrit. It means black. And this is where the Ethiopians who created the Hindu Kush civilization in that area came from, up out of the Nile. So we have to understand that all of these civilizations are given birth to by the Nile Valley Africans. You see right here where it says DNA traces Chinese back to Africa. They didn't say Mesopotamia. They didn't say Europe or the Americas. It says the Chinese trace their lineage back to Africa. What you're looking at is the step pyramid style of the Asian architecture. This is what you're looking at. So even the step pyramid African architecture even went into India. What you're looking at is the nappy-headed Buddhas that were nothing more than the representations of the black god Asa that had went into India and raised up the Indians, the black Indians over in that realm. And they put the woolly hair on his head, the thick and the broad nose, to give you the recognition of the Africans that was in that realm long before what you see, the straight-haired Indian of today. Here you see Buddha painted green, just like Asa sometimes is painted green to represent the vegetation, the life force that comes up out of the black earth to give our people the necessary nourishment. Here again, you're looking at the black African, Nile Valley Africans that had moved off into the realms of West Asia. And you can see all in their facial expression, the thick lip, the broad nose, and the woolly hair. These are the true founders of that nation which you call Hindu Kush or India. Here you're looking at Pakal, which is a king in the Americas, to show that the green was a representation of Asa. So Asa was even worshipped in the Americas. Again, to see the cornrow, woolly hair Buddhas that were worshipped. And Buddha and Krishna are only representations of the great black god Asa. Here you see the Nagas of India who paint themselves up as black as a remembrance of the great god Asa. Before there was the Nagas, you got to see that this knowledge came up out of the Nile Valley. The Nagas is a representation of Nekbet, which is the cobra goddess that is upon the black sultan's headdress, to let you know that they are protected by that African woman. Here you're looking at the representation of the Africans on the wall. Pay close attention to that red dye. That red dye that even the Africans use back home on the continent. Here it is. They use the same red dye in Africa that they use in India. Again, we're going back to the step pyramid architecture that come up out of the Nile, that was first created by the great architect multi-genius Imhotep. Again, we're looking at the Buddha, the woolly-headed Buddha, the Christ of India and the West Asia, along with Krishna, which is a representation of the black god Asa. It was these Nile Valley Africans that moved from the Nile Valley into Mesopotamia and then went into India and then went into China. The man that you see there today was not always there. Again, we're looking at the step pyramid architecture. Even though it's not used in stone, it's still a representation of the step pyramid. And another worship, the worship of the golden calf that is in India. It comes from the worship of Heru that was taken into India by Asa and the Nile Valley Africans, the Ethiopians, that moved into that realm and started the Indian Kushite, Hindu Kushite civilization. The Nagas is a representation of Nekbet, the female deity that protects the sultans that is above their headdress. And they took this into India, China, Mesopotamia. You see it all over the world. But what must be known is that it first started in the Nile Valley. What you're looking at right here is Angkor Wat. Look at the water, the sacred lake, and then look at Waset. It's the same setup. And you got to see that. Now look at the pyramid in the back and then look at the obelisk. It is nothing but a Tekken. You got to understand that what you're seeing is Nile Valley science. All of the pyramid shapes in the architecture. This is a representation of the origins of where they came from. That they came up out of the Nile Valley, where the pyramid was the main type of structure that was designed for the sultans for a very long time. So they took this knowledge into West Asia, Mesopotamia, China, and India. So when you look at this, you're not just looking at something that's abstract. This is your history. But you got to trace it back to the Nile Valley. You got to always see it from the Grand Lodge and not the subordinate lodge. George M. James said that there was only one Grand Lodge in the ancient world, and that was Waset. And what you're looking at here is subordinate lodges, minor lodges where the priests went out all around the world and established these lodges. And when you look at Buddha and you're looking at Krishna and you're looking at Jesus and all of these figures, they represent nothing more than a priest that had been educated in the Nile and took that knowledge back home to where he originated from. But they had all gotten their education in the Nile. So the Naga, again, is nothing but a representation of Nekbet. Even the mother, great mother, divine mother, mother and child that came up out of the Nile Valley as Aset and Horus. This even went into India and China. It is nothing but a representation of the great queen Aset and the holy virgin born son Heru. Here you're looking at the Buddha with the short dreadlocks. If you ever seen somebody that has short dreadlocks very close to their head, this is what they look like. This Buddha has the short, crisp dreadlocks. Another step pyramid design in the pagoda. The Chinese, Japanese, and West Asian pagoda. It is nothing but a form of the step pyramid. You got to understand this. So when Diodorus Siculus, who documents in the 1st century that the great god King Asa had went all around the world, in that same chapter, it states that he went all around the world and educated the world how to feed themselves. So this was documented in the 1st century AD. And then you got Jesse the Jerusalem Muslim and Father Kabbalah, another fake-ass scholar, the see-through Hebrew that want to come 3,000 years later and rewrite our history. Here is a black Chinese that was taken in the San Francisco Museum having discussion with the lighter-skinned Chinese. Here is another representation of the black god Krishna, who is nothing but a representation of the great god Asa that came up out of the Nile. Here you see another Sultan with Nekbet, the cobra goddess above his head, where the Naga came from up out of West Asia. Nekbet is not a Naga now, but that is where the Naga came from. As it went into Asia, it took on its own characteristic. But in the Nile Valley, it is a representation of the great goddess Nekbet. Hotep, family.